Your face belongs to us. A secretive startup's quest to end privacy as we know it. This is the author, Kashmir Hill.
AI videos are taking over social media. You may have already spotted the Sora logo watermarked on videos as you scroll through Instagram or TikTok. Made by OpenAI, Sora can take a genuine video or photo of someone and spin up a virtual lookalike in mere minutes. And it's not alone. Google has its Nano Banana image generator, and Apple's got Image Playground. WSJ personal tech columnist Nicole Nguyen is here to discuss these tools, the potential risks they pose, and the safeguards that are in place. And a quick note, News Corp, the owner of the Wall Street Journal, has a content licensing partnership with OpenAI. So Nicole, the big video generating app right now is OpenAI's Sora. Tell us about Sora. Where can I find it? How does it work?
So Sora is currently invite only. It's available to anyone to download via the iOS App Store, but to be able to use Sora, you need an invite code. It is built on OpenAI's latest video generation model, and the reason why it's so buzzed about is because you can create your own digital likeness within minutes. All I had to do was look at a camera, speak 3 numbers aloud, move my head around, and then it created this impersonation of me, this digital avatar that did look and sound a lot like me, that I could put in any scenario that I could dream up. And I could also allow other people who are on the platform to create videos with my digital avatar appearing in them, and also open it to everyone, which I definitely did not, because that would be crazy.
Okay, so you tried out that digital doppelganger or cameo feature. What did the results look like? Were they pretty believable?
So I would say mixed. I mean, at first, it really depended on the scenario of the video. And the weirdest thing about generative AI is the same prompt will produce a different response every time. So the likeness does not look exactly the same in every single video. In some, my facial expressions, the flyaways in my hair, the texture to my skin was perfect, on point. And then in others, my teeth look really off, and it said things that I would never say, and it didn't look like me, but I was definitely creeped out at its capability in like the best circumstance with the most finely tuned prompt, that it could create something that looked and sounded just like me and make it do something that I have never done or did say in real life.
And are there any restrictions on using Sora at the moment? Did the companies say what kinds of privacy protections there are for users?
There are elements of this cameo feature that are really elegantly designed. So, for example, if you let other people use your cameo in their videos, you will always have visibility into their drafts, even if they don't publish those videos, and you can delete them at any time. And those videos that are created by them and feature you cannot be downloaded or screen recorded. And I'm sure that there are ways around that, but the baseline protection is pretty good. I did, however, see a lot of dead celebrities in the app. There are restrictions around living celebrities, like anything that mentions Taylor Swift or intellectual property like Star Wars will be immediately blocked. But Martin Luther King Jr., for example, was fair game. And in one of the creepiest videos that I saw, it looked like this grainy footage, historical footage that looks genuine. And he said, I have a dream that Sora will change its content violation policy, which is something that Martin Luther King Jr. never said, but it was definitely in his voice and in his likeness.
So what are some of the risks involved with using this tech?
The main risk is that once you hand your likeness over to these AI apps, you lose control of them. We've known since the dawn of the internet, once you post a photo, it can be photoshopped endlessly. It can be shared and distributed in many ways without your consent. But these AI tools really supercharge both the manipulation and distribution of these images. And a lot of platforms, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, say you need to make sure you have the rights and permission to upload a photo that you're going to manipulate. But just because they say that doesn't mean that people do that. And so anyone could really upload an image featuring you to these tools and create something that looks like you, and now those companies have access to your face as a part of their training data. OpenAI says it takes steps to protect user privacy, and in the app settings, for example, you can prevent the company from using your content to train its models, and that's true of other AI apps too.
That was WSJ personal tech columnist Nicole Nguyen.
I was not the smartest man in my class. I was mediocre. And I'm willing to bet that most of you that are leading today, you were not the best in your class. You were mediocre. But what happened to the top of the class? It's gone. It's dead. It's in jail. It's on drugs. It's destroyed. We that got through, we're more submissive. We submitted to our teachers. And we let them bend us and mold us. And the more we look like we accepted the bending and the molding, they applauded us. They patted us on the back. They gave us a star on the forehead. They gave us a passing grade. So you become the first Negro to do this, or the first Negro to do that, or the first Negro on Channel 5, or the first Negro on Channel 7, or the first Negro.
Some of the biggest names in entertainment saying a star-studded farewell to a ballet icon.
Misty Copeland's final performance with the American Ballet Theater. And Copeland made history in 2015 when she became the first black principal ballerina in the American Ballet Theater, inspiring a whole generation of dancers.
And this is a celebration we can all enjoy. That's because her last performance at Lincoln Center will be live streamed tonight for free.
Eyewitness News reporter Lauren Glassberg is there live where the performance is about to begin. Lucky you, Lauren.
I know, it is such a glamorous night here, and I can tell you that Misty Copeland actually hasn't danced here in 5 years, but she is back tonight, one night only, for this farewell performance. And she was just on the red carpet about an hour before showtime. She was joined by Oprah Winfrey, who is honoring her tonight. Debbie Allen also just passed through, and Misty is performing 3 works, but they're also performances paying homage to her and her career. It is really the hottest ticket in town.
She's just an inspiration to so many little girls who look like her and don't look like her, but especially for the ones who do, because there's not many of them.
Ebony Johnson and her 10-year-old daughter Kennedy flew up from Atlanta, Georgia at 5 this morning to ensure they were able to watch Misty Copeland's final performance at Lincoln Center.
She is the person that I want to be when I grow up.
They were third in line to see tonight's free live stream of Misty's farewell.
And she's just right across the street, like over there. Like, that makes me feel very powerful for my future.
A future that Misty helped pave the way for.
She was the first black female principal of American Ballet Theater. And for that really opened the doors for so many young people who look like Misty, who say, she did it, now I have a possibility of doing that too.
Misty only began dancing at 13, a petite wonder who made history on stage and helped open doors off stage. Her foundation brings ballet to inner city kids. 200 of those students are attending tonight's live stream. Misty has long attracted new audiences.
We saw so many people come to see Misty. So many black and brown people come to see the ballet, sometimes for the first time.
Ty James is a Misty superfan.
I've always wanted to see her dance Romeo and Juliet with Calvin Royal and see 2 African-American leads in such an iconic role, and being able to see that today, even on live stream, will be amazing.
A once-in-a-lifetime moment.
Tomorrow morning we will be back in school, but we will have checked this box. Everything about Misty is something that she will be able to embrace when she gets older.
And tonight is really a final curtsy for Misty, but also a thank you in all that she has done for ballet. The performance will last about 70 minutes. After that, a fabulous gala dinner. And this is also a celebration of American Ballet Theater's 85 years. So a very special night. Live on the Upper West Side, Lauren Glassberg, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, special night indeed. Inspiring so many in ballet, but so many black young girls. Now they can see themselves there. Presence matters, no doubt.
I watched a white riot in Portland, Oregon on television the other night.
When explorers Lewis and Clark returned from their expedition to the Pacific Ocean, they were rewarded with land, money, and glory. One key member of their crew was not, though. He was an enslaved black man named York. He returned to slavery, and almost nobody knows his name. More than 200 years later, the inaugural York Fest aims to change that. Dina Pritchek reports from Portland, Oregon.
York was born enslaved to William Clark's family in Virginia. He moved with them out to St. Louis and then on to the expedition, helping hunt and camp and trade with the tribes along the way. He carried his own gun and even had a vote in where the party set up their winter camp.
Not only was he a capable and contributing member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, but he was also one of the most successful explorers in American history of his era.
Zachary Stocks runs Oregon Black Pioneers, the state's African-American Historical Society. They just kicked off York Fest in Portland, Oregon, to give York the recognition he never got in his lifetime.
There is no York journals in the way that there's a Lewis and Clark journal, right? So everything that we know about York comes from second or third-hand sources.
We know York had a wife and family that he had to leave behind, and that after the expedition, he returned to his role as the Clark family servant. Most historians agree he eventually received his freedom, but not for nearly a decade.
It's kind of up to us as the people who've come after him to think about what his story means and carry on his legacy.
York Fest aims to live out that legacy in all sorts of ways this week. Different organizations are offering events from historical talks to boat rides tracing York's path up the Columbia River. The festival will end with the premiere of a folk opera that literally gives York a voice.
Living enslaved is all I have known, but I know there's something better on the other side.
That impressive baritone is Cedric Berry, playing the title role in York the Explorer.
Each day above the ground is a blessing we know. I'ma keep dreaming till the day I die.
The opera was written by Aaron Nigel Smith. It blends those classical operatics with West African drums, a gourd banjo, and hip-hop vocals. Smith says it's important to tell York's story, and it's especially important to do it here.
It's in the Constitution of Oregon that black folks weren't allowed and should not be here and would not be here, you know.
These black exclusion laws were repealed, but they left a legacy. Portland is still one of the whitest major cities in the U.S.
There's a lot of work that we have to do as a community and as a society to embrace knowledge, you know, and learn from it.
Like a lot of Oregonians, Aaron Nigel Smith first heard of York a few years ago when an unauthorized bust of him was put up in an Oregon park, and then vandalized and taken down.
We're coming up on the celebration of the 250th year of independence here, and so it would be incredible for us to not bury our history and our stories, but rather, you know, shine a light on the real American story.
York's story is hard, but it's also joyful and surprising and kind of amazing. The organizers of York Fest hope that shining a light on York's story can help people reckon with the past and, maybe, pioneer a better future. For NPR News, I'm Dina Pritchep in Portland, Oregon.
This city, these people, making the rest of us feel like we don't belong. But they know better than us. Look at how they treat their children. Mark my words, Mr. Resendez. If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one.
A recent report by the Cap Times reveals 200 educators in Wisconsin schools have been formally investigated for sexual misconduct or grooming students from 2018 to 2023.
The report says information about those cases has largely been shielded from the public. Now some Wisconsin lawmakers are calling for action.
State Superintendent of Public Instruction Jill Underly sent a letter to the Cap Times criticizing the reporting and calling for a correction. The letter reads in part, "Any suggestion that the DPI withholds information from the public is categorically false. Records are released in accordance with open records laws, and educator license statuses are publicly available to anyone on the DPI's website."
What are the best ways for schools and state governments to prevent misconduct by teachers and to react when it happens? Enough Abuse is a national organization that aims to prevent child sexual abuse. One aspect of their work is to track state-level bills and policy on preventing sexual abuse in schools. Jetta Bernier is the group's executive director. Jetta, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Rob. I'm glad to be here.
Big picture, you've said elsewhere that sexual misconduct in schools is an urgent issue. How common are things like sexual misconduct and grooming in schools across the nation?
Well, you know, back in 2004, the U.S. Department of Education actually commissioned a study to answer that very question. And they found that 1 in 10 students were reporting some kind of inappropriate sexual contact with a teacher or an adult in their school sometime between K through 12th grade. We were very alarmed with that, and that launched a lot of efforts in our own state here in Massachusetts. However, a couple of years ago, another researcher did a study of over 6,000 recently graduated high school students and found that 12% reported that they had experienced through their childhood in schools some kind of inappropriate behavior. And the good news is that of that 12%, the vast majority of it has to do with verbal and visual kinds of inappropriate behaviors. And only a small percentage, thank God, have talked about actual sexual abuse. This is good in the sense that it gives us an opportunity to prevent some of these grooming behaviors, some of these boundary violating behaviors from happening in the first place. But nonetheless, it is alarming because we know that in many cases there are verbally inappropriate comments made, sexual jokes, innuendos, flirting kinds of behaviors that students are reporting with, again, a teacher, a coach, an individual who might be a security guard, even a school resource officer. There is some percentage that are visual kinds of inappropriate behaviors, exposure of genitals, sharing of sexually inappropriate pictures, those types of messages that might come to them through direct messaging or through their various social media platforms. There are, again, physical kinds of violations, including kissing, touching, fondling, and as I said, in some cases, we're talking about actual sexual intercourse involving adults in the schools. And I'm talking about a variety of adults. I'm talking about the science teacher. I'm talking about the football coach, the individual who might be the custodian, the bus driver. So we're not only talking about teachers here, we're talking about all the employees within a school whose role and responsibility is to keep children safe. Because if kids don't feel safe, they cannot learn. And that's really the purpose of what schools are supposed to do.
Right. In these investigations here in Wisconsin, many of them were some of the things you mentioned, sharing an inappropriate meme, boundary crossing, maybe not as bad as it could be, but still bad. What are the impacts on the kids themselves of this? Even if it's that boundary crossing behavior you were just talking about, what does that do for the kids, to the kids?
Well, you know, the researchers took a look at those kids who had experienced some kind of inappropriate behavior versus those that did not. And they found that there were very low rates of reporting. Children often don't tell anybody about this. If they do, it's often a friend rather than, a teacher or a parent. But what they found is that there was poorer overall psychological well-being in those individuals who had experienced this. Overuse of alcohol and drugs, involved in other coercive sexual relationships, even past suicide attempts. So the impact on kids is not only felt while they're going through this, but these problems extend into adulthood with rates of depression, anxiety, inability to form really trusting, safe relationships. So the impact is, and again, the impact is felt not only on these children, but on their families and on society as a whole, because we pay dearly in financial damages when these cases are brought up, and states and cities and towns have to pay damages for these cases that have not been adequately dealt with.
One concern raised in this Cap Times report is that in some cases, we're talking about teachers in particular here, there's a report, an investigation might be starting. The teacher in some of these cases can voluntarily surrender their teaching license, and that effectively, in many cases, puts an end to that investigation. Some state lawmakers have responded saying, hey, we want to change the law to not let that happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this habit of, allowing individuals to surrender their license in lieu of an investigation is happening pretty consistently across the country. We applaud the Wisconsin legislators who are taking quick action to push for a piece of legislation that would, in fact, no longer allow that to happen. If we don't count, then we don't know. We can't know if our prevention efforts are going to work if we don't know how many cases there are to start with. State departments do have information that they keep. Sometimes they keep it in a shoebox. And when the media wants to find out more details, they often have to pay money to get it. And then when they do, what they get is a lot of documents with a lot of redacted information. So they don't even know exactly what the particular charges were. So these bureaucratic systems have got to shape up. There's no question. And as I said, I think it's great that Wisconsin lawmakers are moving to do that. I know that we will be watching very closely to see how that particular bill moves through the process. And how other states can learn from Wisconsin's efforts.
One concern is, okay, if a teacher or other school staff member is accused and investigated, they leave that job, well, can they just get a job with access to kids somewhere else? So one notion is, okay, this information should be very public and follow them. On the other hand, if there is an accusation, there's never criminal charges filed, there's no proof that this has actually happened, then that could unfairly, right, follow that accused educator. How do we balance that?
Well, again, I have to applaud Wisconsin because in 2017, your state, and is now only among 6, that actually has a law on the books, I believe it's Act 130, that basically prohibits schools from what is called, in the vernacular, passing the trash. In other words, aiding and abetting an individual engaged in some kind of educator sexual misconduct to get a job in another school. This is something all states should be doing. However, Wisconsin doesn't go far enough. For example, one of the things that a number of states are now doing is including a disclosure form as part of the interview process for new hires in schools. And it basically says, have you ever been the subject of an investigation for sexual misconduct? Have you ever relinquished your license? Was your license ever permanently or temporarily withheld from you because of the findings of such an investigation? What Wisconsin's law doesn't include is, does it give the person who's interviewing for the position the responsibility to say, yes, in written form, yes, you may contact all the other schools where I worked to make sure that they verify that what I've told you is accurate. The reason that is important is that a lot of schools are very reluctant to share information about a previous misconduct of an employee because they're concerned that if the employee doesn't get the job and finds out that there was not a positive reference and that they shared personnel information, that they could be liable for some kind of civil suit. So we've got some basics in place there in Wisconsin, but we've got to, enhance some of those things. We need to make sure that schools know that they are protected from any kind of liability when they share in good faith information about a previous employee's personnel record. Okay, so this is really very critical. One other thing that Wisconsin does not do, it does not prohibit the development of confidentiality agreements, which sometimes are put in place as a way to suppress information in that employee's record. So there's some good solid stuff that's going on, but it needs to be enhanced. And we, of course, are happy to work with Wisconsin lawmakers and advocates and survivors to push some of these through. If I might mention another very critical piece, when I understand that there may be some conversations going on now at the State House about this, individuals who work in schools and in youth organizations need to know what are those boundary violating behaviors that they should not cross. And sometimes these schools have various policies. They're often tucked into various other policies. And it's not common that we find a standalone, very comprehensive, detailed code of conduct that specifically lays out the kinds of behaviors not only that you should do in terms of interacting with students, but that you should not do. If there is that kind of education of staff about what those violations are, we will see fewer cases of sexual abuse happening with schools. We need to make sure that those individual types of behaviors are understood not only by the staff in the school, but by the students, and even more importantly, by the parents. So that if a child comes home with an iPad one day and says, "My teacher gave this to me," the parent doesn't say, "Oh, well, isn't that great?" Rather, the parent says, "Well, did every other child in the school get one too? Why did the teacher give this to you? What kind of special relationship is this teacher trying to, develop with you?" So, this is not rocket science. We know what the modus operandi is of individuals who would abuse our children. And so with that knowledge, we can begin to put in place these codes of conduct, the training that is so essential for every employee, so that we nip this in the bud, so that those who would abuse our children never get past the school door.
And we'll leave it there. Jetta, thanks again for joining us today.
You're so welcome, Rob.
That's Jetta Bernier, Executive Director of the group Enough Abuse, a national organization that aims to prevent child sexual abuse in homes, schools, youth organizations, and communities. Looking ahead after a report in the Cap Times looking at how schools investigate accusations of misconduct and grooming.
Billie Holiday, I sing your blues. Bet your life against me and I swear to God you'll lose it. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis.
Sumner High School in St. Louis, Missouri is the oldest school west of the Mississippi River to graduate black students. It celebrates its 150th anniversary this year, but after a deadly tornado this spring, it faces an uphill battle to survive. Andrea Henderson of St. Louis Public Radio reports.
Sumner High School was built in 1875. It's located in a well-known St. Louis neighborhood called The Ville. The area was once the city's epicenter for black entertainment and business. It's deteriorated since, but Louisa Williamson lived there when it was bustling. She attended Sumner in the early 1940s and says she was surrounded by excellence.
The teachers saw to it that we learned. There's a whole lot of blacks that graduated from Sumner that were great.
Williamson is 101 and one of Sumner's oldest known living alumna. She says many of the school students became household names.
Oh, Chuck Berry was a classmate of mine. And Tina Turner, she was a classmate of my brother's.
And the list goes on. Tennis legend Arthur Ashe, opera singer Grace Bumbry, and comedian Dick Gregory once all walked the halls of Sumner. However, over the past several years, Sumner has faced declining enrollment. Many black families began moving out of the area after housing segregation laws became illegal. And in 2020, the St. Louis Board of Education weighed whether to close Sumner to save money. But then a new challenge came this spring when a strong tornado tore through St. Louis. The city's mayor, Carey Spencer, said the storm caused miles of destruction.
We're talking about thousands of buildings, thousands of families are being displaced.
And the tornado destroyed Sumner's roof and several classrooms. The school board estimated there were more than $1 million in damage. For now, Sumner's students attend classes at a much smaller middle school a mile away. And its principal, Rhonda Wallace, makes a point to chat with students daily in the cafeteria during lunch.
Where you been all my life? Where you been all my life? Welcome home, baby. You good?
Wallace says she's tried to make the students as comfortable as possible, but every day they ask about returning to Sumner.
It's not a negative ask. It's okay, when we gonna get the new roof? When are we gonna get our new floors? And are they gonna fix the gym too?
Wallace knows the district is considering closing some schools again, but she hopes Sumner is not on the list. That's also the hope of hundreds of alumni that came to Sumner's annual gala this summer and celebrated the school's 150th anniversary. E.W. Clay, who graduated in 1972, says the school shaped so many students' lives.
Sumner High School taught me to be an activist in the community. Most of the teachers were activists in addition to being experts in the field of education.
The school board says it plans to repair Sumner, but there's no date set for return. Dakota Scott, who graduated from Sumner this past May, says if the district decides to shutter it, officials will have a fight on their hands.
I hope that not only do they not close my school down, because we are currently thriving, but I hope that with the fundings that they're allegedly supposed to get from closing these schools down, that they will actually give us better quality of education.
And in an effort to keep one of the city's most storied and impactful schools alive, alumni are working to get Sumner National Historic Landmark status through the National Park Service. For NPR News, I'm Andrea Henderson in St. Louis.
Everyone has a gun, counting bullets like they're Haribo's. So be careful how you roll. Now the playground is the danger zone.
Rita police are looking into how a bullet fired during one of their rifle training sessions in Marana hit a park playground less than a mile away. It happened yesterday at Gladham's Farms Community Park.
13 News reporter Catherine Patterson joining us live from the park with the latest. Catherine.
Yeah, Dan, Brooke, I had the opportunity to speak with a woman who was here at this park yesterday when all of a sudden she heard a bullet hit these monkey bars right here. She keeps replaying the moments in her mind, wondering if anything had been different, what could have happened to her and her 3-year-old grandchild.
When Robin Taylor looks at this playground, she and her grandson see a monster truck arena. When they were rolling those mini trucks down this mound, she would have never guessed what the next few minutes of their lives would look like.
Literally, I went to go down and it went zoom, and it hit right at that monkey bar right there.
A bullet passing by sent the veteran into action. When the sound of gunfire wouldn't stop, she ran to take cover behind a bench with her 3-year-old grandchild and called 911.
You're just in panic. You don't know where it's coming from. It could have been from the wash. It could have been, you don't know.
But it was coming from this shooting range where Sahuarita PD was using the space for rifle training. You can see the lights from the soccer fields while the guns go off.
Even some of the people that I spoke to that use this range say they do not shoot in that direction because they know behind those trees is that very park less than a mile away.
According to the town of Marana, this is not the first time a bullet has made its way past the range. Back in 2020, multiple shots struck the baseball field right next to the playground. Just like the incident yesterday, no one was hurt. But Taylor says it's only a matter of time before their luck runs out.
I really don't want it to have to be like it needs to be something like a death or somebody has an injury. To me, that's too far. And I just want to know it's safe to come back to this park. My grandson loves this park.
Sahuarita PD is currently conducting an internal investigation of the incident. Reporting live in Marana, Catherine Patterson, 13 News.
Now, everybody's like, jails ain't tough enough. Jails ain't tough enough. We got to have a death penalty. Jails ain't tough enough.
20 years later, Hannibal Nichols is talking to me in a loft-style art studio, telling me about late August 2005. He was in college to study business administration and engaged to be married. Then suddenly, he was in jail, fighting for his life.
We're literally looking at how much time we have left before we suffocate, drown, and die, because the water is coming up, and no one's getting us out.
In the last normal days before New Orleans changed forever, Nichols was arrested on a misdemeanor charge, which he denies. He expected to get out of jail right away.
I did not even know Katrina was on its way. I had no idea. I hadn't watched the news.
But as he learned about a pretty big storm, reality sank in, as well as a state of shock.
Power was going to go out. No telling how long this is going to be. No telling how high the water's going to be. So what I started to do is I started to store cups of water in my jail cell.
Then another kind of water arrived, seeping into cells around him. Nichols was taken to a sweltering upstairs gym where he'd remain for days.
And the deputy ended up just looking at us and was like, hey man, what are we going to do? How are we doing this? And he literally looked at us and put up the peace sign and left.
Nichols was among those left behind in the Orleans Parish Prison complex. The case adds to a dark catalog of crises during Katrina. It's detailed in a 2006 report led by the ACLU's National Prison Project and partner groups. It says some people went for days without food and power. Some waited for rescue in stagnant water.
The report found that in the days after Katrina struck New Orleans in 2005, thousands of men and women and children were simply abandoned in the Orleans Parish Prison.
That's David Fati. He wasn't deeply involved with the report, but was with the National Prison Project at the time. He's now its director. The report's main finding? Fati says little planning to protect incarcerated people in a storm.
And that when the hurricane did strike, these mostly black and brown and impoverished people were simply treated as expendable.
The administration at the time later denied many reports from inside the jail, but a chaotic evacuation involving confusion and force followed. Burl Cain is the former Angola warden who now runs Mississippi's prison system. He remembers trying to get control of people in the jail.
They opened the door to stare and they tried to come out, so then we shot them with a beanbag, 2 or 3, bam, bam. Well, they thought we were shooting them with real bullets.
People were pulled to an overpass bridge. Cain says some were handcuffed together.
So there were no records to say this was a murderer and this was a guy in the jail for drunk. So we just pretended they were all murderers.
They were evacuated to prisons near and far. Fati said conditions at those other sites were sometimes worse,
including racist abuse and violence from law enforcement.
Nichols, too, made his way to the bridge. Eventually, he collapsed. He remembers eyeing a nearby puddle.
I just remember licking that concrete ground, just as nasty as that was, just hoping that that was water.
He was shuffled around the state, at first out of touch with his family and fiancée. And the charge he was arrested for was dropped. It was a long time before he could process what happened to him.
But the system made it so bad because they could have let us have water. They couldn't have not left us stranded like that.
20 years later, extreme climate events upped the stakes for scenarios like this. But Fati, with the National Prison Project, isn't always seeing progress.
We don't see prison officials really keeping up to speed with their duty to prepare for these events and to protect the people in their care and custody.
He says corrections officials make plans for events like riots, and they should do the same for natural disasters. For the Gulf States Newsroom, I'm Kat Stromquist.
And just say that we want all black men exempt from military service. That's right. We want all black men exempt from military service. Because you can't have a black man going over there to fight the yellow man for the white man when the white man stole his land from the red man. Okay, that makes a nice rhyme, but no political sense.
The head of U.S. Southern Command, who oversees all military activity in the Caribbean and South America, is stepping down after just a year in the post. His retirement was announced by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth this week on social media, NPR's Quill Lawrence reports.
Secretary Hegseth announced that Admiral Alvin Halsey would retire after 37 years in the military and praised what he called the Admiral's unwavering commitment to mission, people, and nation. U.S. Southern Command later posted a message from Admiral Halsey thanking his troops. It's highly unusual for an officer not to finish the full 3 years of a command like this, and even stranger in the middle of a military buildup which has seen thousands of U.S. troops move into position off the Venezuelan coast. Admiral Halsey is black. The Trump administration has let go several senior military leaders who are non-white or female, implying that they'd been promoted for that reason. But there's another theory this time, says retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery.
I'd probably lean more towards we're conducting extremely unusual operations in Southern Command right now that a reasonable person could disagree with the legality of.
At least 6 times recently, the U.S. military has made lethal strikes on small civilian vessels. The White House says they carried drugs. Critics say the strikes are illegal under both U.S. and international law and that they amount to execution without trial. Montgomery says the military is ill-suited to that job.
As much as I absolutely want to prevent all drugs coming into the country, this kind of law enforcement action against narcotic deliveries is best handled by law enforcement that does appropriate due process.
A U.S. official not authorized to speak publicly has confirmed with NPR that Admiral Halsey recently met with Hegseth at the Pentagon to express his concerns and then stepped down. After that news broke, President Trump confirmed the most recent strike on what he described as a drug-carrying submarine. Trump said without evidence that this was, quote, not a group of innocent people. A second U.S. official who was not permitted to speak publicly said U.S. troops seized 2 survivors after that strike, and they're being brought elsewhere for possible legal proceedings. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
Why haven't you learned anything?
In March, President Trump signed an executive order to begin shutting down the Department of Education, though it would take an act of Congress to actually close it. In the meantime, the department is taking dramatic steps toward fulfilling a conservative vision of a reshaped system of primary and secondary education. Jennifer Smith Richards is the co-author of a ProPublica investigation looking into all of this. Jennifer, what is the Department of Education doing? What steps are they taking?
Yeah, so they've been very, very clear since Trump took office that the idea was to shut down the department. Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, has called it her final mission. And Donald Trump, of course, has called the department a big con job. So that part has been clear, this desire to phase out many of the functions of the department and close it down. What's been less clear is why Linda McMahon has brought in a number of political strategists and, ultra-conservative activists into the office, even as it's supposed to be shutting down and winding down. Those people have been quiet, frankly, about what they are doing behind the scenes at the department.
Is there a common thread running through these appointments, and are they all have similar goals or similar things they've talked about in the past about education?
They have. My colleague and I at ProPublica went through, hundreds and hundreds of hours of speeches and podcast interviews and read essays that were from these appointees that really lay out a vision for the future of American education. And the through line really is that they want to break up what they view as a monopoly that public schools have. And they envision in the future that far, far fewer students will be attending a public school.
I've heard people talk about this, and it's all in the view of the idea of returning power to the parents, letting them sort of figure out what schools are doing well and let them send the money there. What do the critics say about this?
Well, critics say you need a strong public school system for many reasons. One is that public schools are required to serve students with disabilities, whereas private schools typically are not. The American school system is a democratic idea. It was designed to serve any and all students who come through their doors. And private school choice means that private schools also get to choose which students they're going to accept.
On the one hand, the administration and conservatives say that most decisions about what happens in schools should be done at the state and local level. But are they talking about getting involved at the federal level about some curriculum decisions?
The federal government historically has not been involved in dictating what is being taught in the classrooms. They've not been in the curriculum business. But what we're seeing under this administration is a desire to promote certain types of curriculum. For example, what they refer to as a pro-America or patriotic curriculum that would be, in public schools across America. We've also seen a number of, sort of edicts and mandates come out of the department that have to do with teaching racism and gender and diversity issues. And those are steps into the classroom that we haven't seen very frequently in the last few years. We really are seeing the federal government start to really reach into classrooms in a way that we are not familiar with.
There have been some states that have tried to do this, haven't there?
There have been. Some of the states that tend to have majority Republican legislatures have advanced several bills that you might have heard of as anti-DEI bills or anti-CRT bills. A number of states have passed, anti-transgender bathroom bills. So some of these, reforms have been tested in individual states and have been upheld by courts so far in many of the states. So yes, there is certainly a red state testing ground for many of these ideas that we're seeing play out now at the federal level.
And how have been the results been? These testing grounds, what have been the results?
I can't say for sure in every state, but there have been states where the testing grounds have really held up. So states have been able to adopt laws that restrict pretty severely teaching about racism and teaching about gender. They have been successful in passing bathroom bills that prevent transgender students from using the bathroom or locker room at school that matches their gender identity. Those have been in place. And a number of states have been pretty successful in limiting just the type of material that can be at a school or in a school library or on a teacher's bookshelf in her classroom. And so we're seeing kind of a copying of that at the federal level now, where we're hearing for the first time, at least in many years, from the federal government that they want to push certain types of curriculum and certain types of teaching into classrooms.
Jennifer Smith Richards of ProPublica, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hallelujah, Miriam! A couple dozen ministers and parishioners from local churches prayed, sang, and danced at a vigil for Miriam Carey, the 34-year-old dental hygienist from Connecticut, who on October 3rd was fatally shot by police after a high-speed chase from the White House to Capitol Hill.
So for the 34 years that she walked this place, Lord God, allow her light to become a beacon, Lord God.
This morning. Now we want to get to a developing story that we have been all over this morning. The Secret Service arrested a driver they say crashed into a security gate outside the White House.
Yeah, this happened late last night, and this morning we're going to check back in with News Force Megan McGrath joining us live from downtown at the scene of what happened. Megan, what do we know early this morning?
Well, we're still waiting to hear from investigators whether or not they think this was an accident or whether it was intentionally done. But some tense moments last night as all of this unfolded. As you can see over my shoulder here, some of the damage still can be seen. We've got 3 metal poles that have been sheared off and they're now lying on the ground. Now, this happened at the security checkpoint on 17th Street at E. Now, that's across from the Corcoran Art Gallery and the International Red Cross, and of course not far from the south side of the White House. There is a guard shack and metal barriers that come up out of the ground to stop cars from going through. Only authorized vehicles are allowed through this gate and onto the ellipse. But last night, just after 10:30, a car drove into this security gate. Secret Service is leading the investigation, and they really haven't released a whole lot of information at this point. What we do know is that the driver was arrested immediately. There was no sort of chase at all. He was taken into custody. Secret Service and D.C. police then looked over the car to make sure that there wasn't anything dangerous in the vehicle, and they gave the all clear. We do know that the driver is a man, again, taken into custody immediately, don't have his identity, also don't have any information yet on what, if any, charges have been filed. So a lot of unanswered questions. Can tell you that the security gate, though, is operational and running. Several cars have gone through this morning. Back to you.
Security worked in this case, all the barriers and everything. Thank you, Megan McGrath, live from downtown D.C.
Now, of all the religions, what is the strongest one? And that's what I came up with. So I decided to put it in capital letters, the religion of white supremacy.
At Charlie Kirk's memorial last month, religious belief and conservative politics were both on display. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was one speaker.
Charlie Kirk, a warrior for country, a warrior for Christ. He ran the race. He finished the fight. Now, it's our turn.
Closely aligning Kirk's politics with what it means to be Christian troubles some members of the faith. They say it harms both Christianity and American democracy. NPR religion correspondent Jason DeRose reports.
All right, good morning, friends, in the room and out in the interwebs.
On a recent Sunday, Reverend Susan Russell began the education hour at All Saints Episcopal Church in Pasadena, California.
We're grateful you're here this morning at All Saints Church as we continue our Faith and Formation series.
The series is focused on faith and politics.
All Saints has a long history of striving to live out our gospel values, and we're very clear there's a difference between exercising politics as partisan politics and advocating for gospel values that have political implications.
2 decades ago, the IRS investigated All Saints because of an anti-war sermon that someone felt crossed a line and reported it. That inquiry found the church had done nothing wrong. Religion and politics is still a live topic here. Today, the deep concern, says Russell, is Christian nationalism, an ideology that conflates American identity with Christian identity and rejects the separation of church and state.
Christian nationalism is nothing short of a weapon of mass destruction against core values of the gospel.
Gospel values such as caring for the poor and welcoming the stranger. And Russell argues Christian nationalism undermines American values.
To respect the dignity of every human being and to hold liberty and justice for all are core values that are antithetical to what Christian nationalism proposes.
But many evangelical Christians reject that description and push back against what they call the overuse of the label Christian nationalist.
Certainly it's a term that's been used to malign, it's been used to caricature.
Jeffrey C.O.W.S is the dean of the School of Mission and Theology at Fuller Seminary in Pasadena.
It's a bit like saying, don't think about a hippopotamus. And that's the first thing that comes to mind. Whenever we're trying to battle a particular way of thinking by constantly thinking about that thing, it's pretty hard to escape the vortex.
He worries the Christian nationalist moniker is often used to describe any politics and religiosity that people don't agree with.
We all live in our own countries. We all have to operate in these systems. And so it makes sense that for Americans, there'd be a way that they're trying to make sense of their American citizenship in relation to whatever faith tradition they have.
And he points to biblical teaching from the Gospels.
Particularly for Christians, Jesus was very clear that we should participate with the government that we have. The render unto Caesar what is Caesar is an important part of Jesus' ministry.
Still, there are moments during the Charlie Kirk Memorial that some argue went beyond simply rendering unto Caesar. For instance, this moment in Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's remarks.
This is not a political war. It's not even a cultural war. It's a spiritual war.
The use of Christian language in such absolutist terms suggests that there's no separation between Christianity and the political platform that Charlie Kirk and the elected and appointed people eulogizing him stood for.
Amanda Tyler is executive director of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty and author of the book How to End Christian Nationalism.
That complete merger between Christianity and their political cause has the impact of making it seem like there is a national religion.
But there isn't. Tyler points to the First Amendment and the U.S. Constitution itself.
In fact, the only reference to religion is in Article 6 and a prohibition against religious tests for public office. So the founders, if indeed they were setting up a Christian nation, they did it in the most ineffective way they possibly could, by barring religious tests from the beginning.
Tyler says many Christians in America are becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Christian nationalist rhetoric, and they're doing more than labeling it. They're taking action.
Hi, this is Mara Richards-Bim. I am the Justice and Advocacy Fellow at Royal Lane Baptist Church.
In this TikTok video, Bim and members of her Dallas congregation are marching with signs protesting increased immigration enforcement actions.
I think it's important to point out all of us here in front of the ICE building here in Dallas. We are here every week giving witness because we are taught to love our neighbors as ourselves. And our neighbors include our immigrant neighbors.
Bim says her faith also compels her to work against a new Texas law that could require Bible study and prayer in schools, something she says is clearly Christian nationalism.
Even with Christianity, we have a diversity of traditions, and we don't want state-imposed prayer.
This is not about, Bim says, being anti-religious. She's a minister herself, after all. She says countering Christian nationalism is about protecting religious liberty for all Americans. Jason DeRose, NPR News.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
For many years, the far right has been the most lethal and persistent source of domestic terrorism in the U.S., but a new study says violence from the far left has been the greater threat, at least so far this year. NPR domestic extremism correspondent Odette Youssef looks into this claim.
President Trump's insistence that the far left has been the primary culprit for domestic terrorism goes back years at this point.
Because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
That was a 2020 presidential debate when Trump was asked if he would condemn far-right extremist groups. It was also just days after his acting head at the Department of Homeland Security told congressmen that white supremacist extremists were responsible for the most lethal extremist violence. Still, 5 years later, there is a sense that something is shifting. The nation has seen the killing of Charlie Kirk, the apparent attempted assassinations of Trump, the gunning down of a health insurance executive in New York, and more. These events are not clearly coded as right-wing, and so has the violence, in fact, pivoted to the left?
My hope was to bring some data to the discussion.
Daniel Byman is director of the Warfare, Irregular Threats, and Terrorism program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS. Data on domestic terrorism is surprisingly hard to come by. There is no public, official, unified, and comprehensive database. So researchers like Byman are assembling databases on their own. He looked at incidents between 1994 and July 4th of 2025.
We're seeing, from a low baseline, an increase in left-wing attacks, and we're seeing a decrease in right-wing attacks from much higher numbers.
Byman and his co-author found something remarkable. Their tally showed that in the first half of 2025, far-left terrorist activity had overtaken that from the far right. It's a departure from the pattern of the last 30 years. News outlets ran with that headline. But among many professionals in Byman's field, the surprise has been for a different reason.
5 is a really low case number to try to make any kinds of inference from and try to say that we're having a major increase in any kind of problem.
Amy Cooter is deputy director at the Institute for Countering Digital Extremism. 5 is the number of far-left terrorist plots and incidents that Byman's study tallied during the first half of 2025. It's a small number, but it's bigger than previous time periods. And Cooter says that is exactly what can distort conclusions.
Compared to historical data, almost any increase in left-wing violence is going to look like a big jump.
Byman acknowledges this. Still, he says the trends are what matter. But Jacob Ware, a research fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, says there are more questions.
There have been methodological concerns that have been aired with that product.
This is where the real mess starts. There are a host of subjective calls when it comes to analyzing domestic terrorism. How destructive was the crime? Did people die? Was that by intent? If not, could people have gotten hurt? What was the perpetrator's politics or ideology? Did that motivate the violence? How much fear did the act create? And to what extent did mental health issues factor into the attack? And so some incidents that the CSIS study included and left out have been disputed. Again, Jacob Ware.
Early this year, for example, there were a number of fire bombings at Tesla stores or other Tesla infrastructure. To me, that might qualify as an act of terrorism if somebody is using incendiary devices against civilian targets for political purposes. Those don't seem to be counted.
But the study does count the burning of 11 NYPD squad cars among its 5 left-wing terrorist incidents of 2025. Ware says that one wouldn't make his cut. Another instance that raises questions involved an individual arrested by U.S. Capitol Police earlier this year for allegedly plotting to kill Trump cabinet members. The individual reportedly turned herself into law enforcement before following through. Should that count? Some might say no, but this study included it. What about the killings of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in May? Those are left off this list. Byman says he understands if others arrive at different conclusions on these, as he calls them, edge cases. But 2 or 3 out of 5 can change whether there is, in fact, a trend. Taking a step back, researchers in this field largely agree that something is shifting. Political violence has increased. There is concern that more may be coming from the left, though many told NPR it's just too early still to know. For Jacob Ware, the left-right framework isn't the best way to understand the change.
Terrorism is getting more personal.
Whether it's the killings of a healthcare CEO, a Minnesota state lawmaker, Charlie Kirk, Israeli embassy staffers, the arson at the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, attempted assassinations of Trump, Ware says this is different from the past. Historically, domestic terrorists in the U.S. have sought a large body count. But in recent cases, Ware says perpetrators or suspects haven't done that, even in situations where they could have killed more people. And he says the question of whether their violence stemmed from far left or far right tendencies is more often than not unclear.
We really need to get statements or justifications, motivations from perpetrators. And I don't think we have that in the Charlie Kirk assassination or the Minnesota assassination. So I would argue there's a world in which neither of those people should be coded as terrorists. I mean, they're clearly assassins, but I just don't think we have the information yet that would allow us to code them as terrorists.
Ideally, a data-based understanding of who is committing domestic terrorism, how and against whom, would help law enforcement allocate resources toward the greatest threats. But as the Trump administration continues to ramp up its efforts against its political opposition, Ware and Byman both say any data are unlikely to shift that agenda. Odette Youssef, NPR News.
This is a society whose government doesn't hesitate to inflict the most brutal form of punishment and oppression upon dark-skinned people all over the world. To wit, right now, what's going on in and around Saigon and Hanoi, and in the Congo and in elsewhere. They are violent when their interests are at stake. But all of that violence that they display at the international level, when you and I want just a little bit of freedom, we're supposed to be nonviolent. They're violent. They're violent in Korea. They're violent in Germany. They're violent in the South Pacific. They're violent in Cuba. They're violent wherever they go. But when it comes time for you and me to protect ourselves against lynchers, they tell us to be nonviolent.
It is no secret that acrimony in America is running high. Now, more Americans say violence might be necessary to get the country back on track. That is one alarming finding from a recent NPR PBS News Marist poll. NPR's Domenico Montanaro has more.
In our poll last year, 19% said violence might be necessary to get the country back on track. Now, 9 months into President Trump's second term, it's up to 30%.
I do think that violence makes logical sense.
I don't advocate for violence, and yet when you seem to have no other recourse.
The only reason why we would have to have violence in order to get the country back on track is to protect ourselves.
That's a Democrat, an independent, and a Republican who participated in the survey. Two of them asked NPR not to use their names because they're concerned about threats for expressing their views on this topic. The poll found that Democrats drove the uptick in acceptance of violence, going from just 12% last year to 28% now. Republicans, though, were slightly higher at 31%. The Democrat we talked to is from Florida. She sees violence as potentially necessary because of growing inequality in the country.
Do I think that violence would shake things up and make it where the untouchable elite class feels some responsibility towards their fellow man? Yeah, I support that.
The independent interviewed is from Missouri. He blames Trump for the rise in the potential need for violence.
You need some kind of recourse to protect yourself, protect your family, protect neighbors, protect your communities.
He sees Trump as moving the country in an authoritarian direction. He points to mass deportations and the ordering of the National Guard into cities and states that don't want them there.
They're cracking down on what seems to be any form of resistance.
Keith Herpy, a Republican from Georgia, sees things very differently. Of the National Guard, he says,
some people might view that as violence. I don't. I just putting down an insurrection. You're doing your job.
He puts the blame for political violence squarely on the other side.
The Democrats are the ones who are obviously, for anybody who's paying attention, the ones who are violent. And the only reason why we would have to have violence in order to get the country back on track is to protect ourselves from the Democrats.
He cites conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination and some who celebrated it on social media as evidence of violence coming from the left. There are concerns about a rise in left-wing violence this year, but historically, cases of right-wing violence have far outpaced those from the left. In recent years, there have been plenty of examples of political violence targeting those on the left and right, from the killing of a Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota earlier this year to the 2 assassination attempts on Trump last year.
You are in now what I call the grip of violent populism.
That's Robert Pape, a professor at the University of Chicago who studies political violence.
We find that increasingly each side sees each other as a danger and each side sees itself as a victim.
None of the poll respondents NPR interviewed said they'd commit violence themselves, but Pape worries what an acceptance of violence could lead to.
The more support there is for political violence, the more volatile actors who might be on the edge of committing violence for their own psychosocial reasons will be nudged over the edge by the perception they're doing a community good.
This rise in acceptance of violence also mirrors a decline of trust in politics and political institutions, and if that continues, then it'll be harder for the system to work peacefully. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
Well, just in the nick of time came Samuel Colt, who in 1836 invented the first weapon ever that could be fired over and over without having to reload. And all the Southern whites were like, yeehaw! But it was too late. The North soon won the Civil War and the slaves were freed. Yep, they were free now to go chop all the old masters' heads off. And everybody was like, oh no, we're gonna die. But the freed slaves took no revenge. They just wanted to live in peace. But you couldn't convince the white people of this. So they formed the Ku Klux Klan. And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association. Soon politicians passed one of the first gun laws, making it illegal for any black person to own one.
It is your constitutional right to carry a gun in the state of Illinois if you have the proper licenses. But some black gun owners say their rights are being violated. CBS News Chicago investigator Dorothy Tucker uncovered several cases where they were stopped by police and charged with felonies, despite having everything in order, leaving them to pick up the pieces of their lives.
We did something that's never been done before, watermelon cheesecake.
A cheesecake tasting in the south suburbs. Louis McWilliams' dream is to grow his business.
And it's going to blow you away.
I like it. All was good.
Oh my God, it's so good. I told you. This is like a Jolly Ranch.
Until this.
Like I can right now, Mr. McWilliams.
I'm an entrepreneur. I have a cheesecake company called Ann's Flavored Cheesecakes.
At the time of this interview, Louis faced a felony charge.
This has been very traumatic for me. I feel like my rights was violated.
His Second Amendment rights. Louis is an avid gun owner.
Just got me the AR top, one in the middle.
In April, Louis was pulled over on the south side, West 79th Street. He had a missing front plate.
Hey, yes, sir. How you doing, boss? Good.
The first thing he did, tell the officers he had a gun.
Okay, where's your firearm? On my side. Okay, you got your concealed carry license?
According to state law, in order to carry a legal gun in your car, you need a firearms license, better known as a FOID card, and a concealed and carry license, commonly called a CCL. This is Louis's card, and it's valid. That's what he handed the officers.
He looks at him. He said, okay, cool, this is perfect.
Only it wasn't.
Concealed carry, it didn't pop up. Oh.
It didn't pop up on Leeds, the database operated by the Illinois State Police. Police recommended Louis be charged with 2 felonies.
I can't say right now, Mr. McWilliams, because we can't verify your concealed carry, okay?
And look here. Prosecutors approve the charges.
He never should have been charged.
Irv Miller is a former prosecutor, once in charge of reviewing police cases.
He showed them a valid CCL card. Not only did they see it, they actually took possession of it and inventoried it.
I haven't got the
It's right there in CPD's inventory sheet. So why was Lewis arrested? That's a question we wanted to ask Superintendent Larry Snelling, but he declined an interview. So we reached out to state police, because any time an officer pulls over a driver who has a gun, the first thing they do is check the state's database to see if that driver has a valid FOID and CCL.
Oh, okay.
So here's the question we asked the state. If a driver like Lewis actually hands the police a valid CCL, but the officers don't see the information in the state's database, what should they do? The state replied, the officers should not take any law enforcement action as it relates to a potential FOID CCL violation. That's what Lewis expected, and what he was told later as he stood in a jail cell.
And if this comes back clean,
yeah, then they just let you go, apologize, and let you go about your day.
That's not what happened. Lewis spent 24 traumatic hours behind bars.
It was just deplorable. There were roaches falling from the ceiling.
all of this because of illegal everything.
Yeah, I can't tell you why.
I need somebody to tell me, man.
Worse than the jail conditions? A missed business opportunity.
That day, I had a meeting. Could not do the meeting that day because I was arrested. By losing that, I might have lost the franchise.
Lewis also lost time, lots of it. He was in and out of court fighting to get the charges dismissed and his impounded car returned.
I know this is a system, so just hoping for the best results.
It wasn't until mid-June, 3 months after he was stopped, that the case was finally dismissed.
I'm very excited for him, but this is not the end.
Next step, more money spent to expunge the case, so his arrest won't show up in a background check. And all of this for somebody who did nothing wrong?
Correct.
Your joy is a little bit...
Dampered, yes. Totally dampered, because now this is a much longer process.
It's nearly impossible to know how many drivers like Lewis are wrongly charged with unlawful gun possession that are later dismissed. Neither the CPD or the Cook County State's Attorney's Office track it.
Because we got to confirm whether it's actually valid or not.
We did find a handful of lawsuits accusing police of violating the rights of legal gun owners.
And I'm sitting in here in the back of a squad car because my license expired, but I renewed it.
One of those, an irate Lucy Washington.
And it's not my fault that you guys didn't get it in your system.
I'm an entrepreneur, a loving mother. I do everything from real estate.
Can't wait to get my guys in here to look at the floors.
To rehabbing.
Here's Lucy's story.
Yes.
In December of 2023, she was stopped for failing to put on her turn signal. Without hesitation, she volunteers.
I am concealed and carry.
As a single woman, Lucy carries a gun for protection.
I have it.
My love, your CCL expired.
I know, but if you pull it up, it'll show that I already tried to renew it.
Lucy tries to explain that the email showing proof she renewed is on her phone.
My phone is fell.
Only she can't find it. This is the email from the state Lucy was trying to show the police. It says if you apply for renewal, you're eligible to possess a license.
Oh my God, are you serious? Can I please look for my phone? Please, give me like 5 more minutes to look for my phone.
And it sounds like the officers weren't going to accept the email under any circumstances.
It's not in our system, Lucy. It's not in our system.
I freaked out, especially when I was told that I was going to be charged with a felony. I'm like, I can lose my broker license.
Like Lewis, Lucy's felony charge was eventually dismissed. She also got the case expunged, but she's still living with the trauma.
If you search a property that is in my name, my mugshot shows up next to it. It's embarrassing. You know, how do I explain to someone like, oh no, I was innocent?
If they did nothing wrong, again, why were Lewis and Lucy arrested? We pose that question to Phil Smith.
And I'm honored to testify today.
Smith is a president and founder of the National African American Gun Association. Membership more than 50,000.
Outrage, anger, frustration. Not again. Those are the conversations and statements that are going in my head when I hear about another black person being stopped illegally, being arrested illegally when they've had all their stuff together.
While there is no data that tracks race in these types of gun arrests, Smith points to America's disturbing history of black people with guns being unjustly killed by police.
If you look at other communities, they have firearms all over the place, and it's okay. They go to Macy's, they go to Walmart, they go shoot and hunt, and it's okay.
This is so ridiculous, bro.
I felt defeated, you know? I felt defeated. And I felt like nobody had my back.
I just feel like the rights that I've been given,
Pardon my reach.
the constitutional rights to have it, that the police officer didn't stand up for.
These cops been killing me, bro.
Since the arrest, Lewis has been struggling to rebuild his cheesecake business. He blames police for the setback and plans to sue the department.
This shows that no matter how much you follow a system of which they create, they can still deem you wrong.
At this point, both Lewis and Lucy are still waiting to get their legally purchased guns back from CPD. Both the state's attorney's office and the state police declined to be interviewed. Dorothy Tucker, CBS News Chicago, investigators.
Our team is working to find out just how often this happens. If this happened to you, we want to know. Head to our website and take our survey at cbschicago.com.
This question, why is this stuff happening? The New York Times editorial today. The Trump effect. See, this is what I'm doing with my money, buying newspapers like Dick Gregory. The Trump effect and how it spreads. It says we are on the brink, under Trump, on the brink of fascism. New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, editorial 12/10/2015. I say fascism is end-stage white supremacy. See, just like in Nazi Germany. Fascism, system of racism, white supremacy, determined to survive.
But first, breaking news tonight in Atlanta as a man is now behind bars, accused of threatening to shoot up Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport.
Let's get straight out to 11 Alive's Cody Alcorn. He's live tonight from Atlanta Police Headquarters. So, Cody, city leaders just held that news conference around 3 this afternoon. What did they tell you about this arrest?
Well, they identified this suspect as Billy Cagle of Cartersville. They tell us his family saw him on social media this morning. He was live talking about heading to the airport to, quote, shoot it up. And that is when the family came forward, reached out to Cartersville police, who contacted APD. They swarmed the airport and actually tracked him down in 14 minutes. Now, take a look. This is the gun they say he had inside his truck, which was parked right outside the airport at the South Terminal. The FBI sharing this photo. The chief saying he had 27 rounds. You see those bullets there. All of the city leaders who were at this news conference, including those police chiefs, saying a catastrophe was diverted today by the quick thinking of Billy Cagle's family, who reached out to Cartersville police. Now, here is some video of Billy. He's in that blue shirt inside the airport. They say at 9:29 he showed up to the airport. APD was not alerted till 9:40. That's when they sent officers out searching for him. They had a picture on their phone. They tracked him down, and again, within 14 minutes, had him in custody. And that's after is when they found the truck outside and that ammunition. But again, as you can imagine, at the world's busiest airport, this could have been a whole lot different. Take a listen to city leaders during that news conference.
What you're seeing is we are experiencing across the nation and even in this great city where guns and mental health challenges going together can propose a deadly scenario. But we're thankful that in this situation today, this crisis was averted.
Now, you heard the mayor talking about mental health. It is believed he was going through some type of crisis. I went on his Facebook page, Billy Cagle, that is, and you could see he must have been going through something as people were commenting back to him. He said he was off his meds. So that is part of the investigation. Something else to keep in mind, he is a convicted felon, according to the chief. So he should not have had access to this weapon. That's also under investigation. As I mentioned, the FBI assisting Atlanta police on this case. But again, what they're saying is this is the perfect scenario where you see something and you say something. This family, true heroes today, likely saving more than 24 lives at that airport had he gotten that gun. And the chief says when they went to arrest him, they believe he was walking back to his truck, which is kind of parked on the sidewalk there, the South Terminal. And the chief says they believe he was going for that gun. But again, a crisis diverted inside the world's busiest airport this morning here in Atlanta.
All right, Cody, and so glad that the community got involved first, contacting law enforcement. And yes, it was not a tragic situation. Thank you, sir.
End stage white supremacy. And in fact, ATL was Billy Cagle. That's Antifa. Billy Cagle, old leftist. Democrat. That's Billy Cagle. I've been to Atlanta Airport, I think more than once. Lots of black people work, travel through Atlanta's airport. Context of white supremacy. Black OJ, Gus T. Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on what it means to be classified as white. Billy Cagle, the global system of white supremacy racism, information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, October 25, 2025. So I have been told. Our weekly compensatory call-in, go over some of the news reports. Billy Cagle. Other tidbits from the past 7 days or so on the plantation. Not for spectators. If non-white people have thoughts, counter-racist suggestions, observations, feel free. Let me know. The number, let us know. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Quickly, I said last week, told folks we were going to have white guests on the program Monday. Program got bumped to Tuesday per the white woman's request. Admitted racist Blanche Boyd in the archives. Fascinating discussion. Maybe even worth it to hear the great journalist Tony Brown's interview from almost 50 years ago with admitted racist Blanche Boyd. That's how we started the program and just continued from there. Lots of respect for Tony Brown. He interviewed Dr. Welsing, and he did one of the, what do you want to call it, debates, I guess, between Dr. Welsing, Dr. William Shockley. He did, I think, the one that's more publicized. I said, this time last year I was in California about to rack up and get some of those other debates other than when Tony Brown had those two on his broadcast. I didn't even know that they did a lot of those debates during the 1970s, Dr. Welsing and Dr. Welsing and Dr. Shockley. Any hoodles. But fascinating discussion, fascinating intro with Tony Brown and Blanche Boyd. Are all whites racist? And then we made that the framework for our dialogue and Susan Smith. That's one thing that if I can just 2 seconds, just 2 seconds. Oh my God. We are never reading fiction in the Catherine Massey Book Club again. I have verbally eviscerated some race soldiers on this here platform. Got sassy, say whatever I want to, because I know what I'm talking about, because we do not waste time reading nonsense in the book club. We read non-fiction. Now, if somebody says, now look here, Gus T, there's a spectacular fiction book on Susan Smith and how she lied on them niggers in South Carolina, present that text. I ain't seen it. I have seen non-fiction books, and that's what I needed for that tacky racist. You gonna sit there and cape for a white woman who done killed 2 white children and practiced racism and lied about it all. You don't even have all your facts together. Racists, they literally kill us because they know we have made these black people extra, super stupid and uninformed about pretty much everything that counts other than cornrows. And I don't think that counts too much. You talk about master deceiver. The less informed you are, oh man, I'm really gonna clown. More ignorant, and these are folks who brag, stick our chest out. I don't check no news. You heard that in the audio today. I ain't know Katrina was coming. I ain't know nothing about that. So what do you say? That's black culture. Saturday night. I'm black and I'm dangerous. Why you dangerous, Leroy? Because I don't check the news. I am not informed about nothing. Apocalyptic hurricane coming to kill us all. What? Katrina, what? What's it called? When is coming? What? White people have done. Hey, I heard that 2025. 2005. That's Katrina. We heard that. And I'm saying it again, I've heard that 2025. We got Apple Watches now, so I mean, it really ain't no excuse to be like, what? Hurricane? When? Who? When? Oh, Lord. What we gonna do? Victims of white supremacy. And brag about not checking the news. Brag about not checking the news. Anyway, Blanche Boyd, admitted racist. Are all people classified as white racist? Even Susan Smith in the archives. Any hoodles. For our broadcast today, audio segments we heard at the beginning, I'm going to get to Misty Copeland first just to make sure I do not miss. Now, I generally try to play a snippet, audio preface before each news report to kind of get us to think. Important, relevant subject matter, provide context, if you will. The preface for the segment, Misty Copeland retiring from ballet and doing her swan song, as it were. Minister Louis Farrakhan, hey, we are just recognizing 30 years from the Million Man March, October 1995, right? So that was Minister Farrakhan Savior's Day, and he was talking about the racist school system and how the students who are doing really well, they put them in remedial and suspend them, especially if they're privileged black dudes. And he just throw them all out, especially if they're really smart and promising. He even used Minister Malcolm X as an example. And he said those of us who are more compliant, that racists allow through the system so that we become the first. And then they talked about Misty Copeland being one of the firsts. Now, that was not to disparage her at all, but the fact that it is nigh on 2030, and we are still talking about Negro firsts. That, not Misty Copeland, lovely victim of white supremacy, but man, we are still talking about firsts at 2030. That is embarrassing and worthy of great pity. That was Minister Farrakhan from like 30 years talking about, so, we go be Negro first, WGN and Channel 7 and all the rest of it. Man. Embarrassing still. 2030. We should be way done with that. Like, replace white supremacy with justice immediately. And even within that segment, they were talking about the live stream, and Oprah Winfrey's going to be there, and Debbie Allen, and they said, this is something that we can all celebrate and be happy about. Now, that is not true. There are a whole lot, especially if this is about inspiring non-white people and to make ballerina more diverse. Oh, God. Goodness well, everybody ain't happy about this. Get on out of here, Misty Copeland. We don't need no dark people and bringing dark folks. I didn't want to see Oprah. Tired of Color Purple. I want to see petite little white girls. Someone I might think about doing a Jeffrey Epstein on. Ooh. Anyway, but no disrespect to Misty Copeland. Hopefully maybe she'll write more about all the racism she experienced in the ballerina world, even executive level, sponsorships, whole shebang. I say that, don't I? Black people, if you get to retire, write a book on the racism you experienced in your career. Even Misty Copeland. If you're a Negro first, you for sure should write a memoir about the racism you experienced being the Negro first in anything. Now, we heard the very first segment, that was the Sora and AI video fake technology that has gotten amazingly sophisticated, and we're not even at 2030 yet, so you give it like 6 months and it'll probably be out of this world. But they said that, hey, what sort of safeguards are we taking so that, you just can't have all kinds of fabrications. I mean, hey, master deception. It'll be super sophisticated now. What sort of safeguards protect my identity and image likeness? What we do. And they said, well, they got some protections. You can't do no Taylor Swifting, but you can slip a Dr. King fake in there. Like, whoa. Time out. Wait a minute. What were the parameters, they said you can get dead people and such, so you can go and get, I don't know, Minister Malcolm X endorsing anti-sex. Rosa Parks saying, now, not all white people is racist. You could get all that? Yeah? Jeez. But you can't get Taylor Swift saying, replace white supremacy with justice. You can't, that violate the rules. Who came up with, and notice now, who is worthy of protection? The white woman. Anyway, but man, in a land of that would be another one. Like if you got children, ooh, totally. Everyone likes new technology and playing around, and what does it look like? Ooh. I'm not sure I would want my child on all that. They've been talking aggressively for years about all the deep porn fakes. It's a massive problem, right? How to prosecute and all that. Just getting somebody, same type of thing. We just go and click, get a picture of you, 30 seconds. What you heard what they said, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, not much. It's 2025, so there's cameras everywhere. So, I mean, if you're 16, 15 and older, it's probably super easy to get 30 seconds of video of you. And then, whammo, we got all kinds of wacky anti-sex video pornography, and look realistic too. We wouldn't even be able to tell that, this is a fake. They have already been talking about that, like I said, for years. Now you add this to it. Wow. I'm so glad I do not have children. This is one you can't even just say, oh, I'm ignorant about all that technology. I don't know. In fact, dare I say, hey, if that's going to be your stance, I'm ignorant about all that, and I got 10 thumbs when it comes to the keyboard and all that stuff, and swiping, and I don't do none of that. You shouldn't have offspring. You will be a total liability to a child growing up post 2030, if that's going to be your stance as a victim of racism to boot. Like, oh my Lord, woo, what they weight around a child's neck. Like, oh no, you got to have a zest, an insatiable thirst for learning, make full of proud. Woo, that's what it would have to be if you're going to have children in this type of environment that is so dangerous, dangerously deceptive. Even that's something to think about in a system of white supremacy. Why do we have all this technology for fakery? Fake images, fake robots, and fake videos. Why all of this fakery? Fake resumes that people can't even... Why all this fakery? Why can't we get some technology? Replace white supremacy with justice. Clean the air up. Like, is that what we needed? Technology to produce really great fake pornography videos before we get the technology to clean the air up, clean the water up. Long list. Produce justice. Stop all this here racism. Nah. Need Dr. King talking about not all white peoples is racist. Yeah. And they could use that for all kinds of goofiness. Man, it could be so good. You could have Dr. King talking about things and people saying, well, Dr. King did really say that. Like, no, he didn't. And that's Sora. I think he said that. Like, woo, Jesus Christ. Let's see. Oh, Lord. Man, did you hear Gus T? I'm going to tell you, massive difference between me and most of the other victims of white supremacy, cows listeners included. Why I'm totally cool being estranged from you all. I don't sit around and criticize other non-white people publicly, privately. Lakeisha ain't been on her job. Leroy been slacking. Leroy ain't read the code. I don't do none of that. When it gets time to do some correcting, because you all love to correct other black people, and I think that's the lamest activity in the world. Fuller even talked about that all the time. Resist the urge to criticize. You all ignore that. That's not, I don't see no value in that, and for reals, I think that is the lamest conduct in the world. We ain't got nothing in common, you all and I. We ain't got nothing in common. We ain't got nothing in common. I got a record. I get excited about talking to white people to tell them either you're lying, incompetent, racist, combination of all three. You can mix it up how you like. Check my record. Isn't that what he said? Check my record. I'm going to do that talking to somebody white. You all can play around and go find some victim, been in solitary confinement. Leroy, you don't know what you're talking about, and stick your chest out and feel proud like you did something. We ain't got nothing in common. I'm talking about you all, victims of racism, and I. Nothing. Remember that. Remember that especially the next time you go to criticize another victim of racism, including Gus T. We ain't got nothing in common. Not even the melanin. Now, that white chick that I talked to, admitted racist, Blanche Boyd, I told her, that's another one. I'm not going to sit here and whisper in the slave quarters. I got no problem going to the big house talking to white people and telling them my views on racism, and I'm going to talk to them just like I talk to y'all. We ain't got nothing in common. I told her, just like I tell y'all, put that on Susan Smith, white people do not care about children. I say that to white people all the time. I say that to white people all the time. We ain't got nothing in common. Remember that. Now, that report from Wisconsin Public Radio, 200 educators, and you know, Wisconsin ain't got very many niggers, so I very seriously doubt it was a whole lot of Lakeishas and Leroys in that 200. 200 educators, they think, got some allegations of sexual misconduct with the children and all the rest of it. 200, and you know that's low. You know that's low. And then they said they got all these redacted reports, make it difficult for the public, parents, to even access what's been going on here. I told you while I was in Wisconsin, Milwaukee specifically, they had privileged black boys out talking about how they had been sexually abused by a white woman teacher. They were out protesting while I was at the Sade C. Robinson trial. 200. They said 10% of the students that they surveyed, some form of inappropriateness, touching, comments, sexual jokes, showing them images, whatever, Jeffrey Epstein, grooming, Mary. Now, one more time, what I just say, we ain't gonna read no fiction, never, ever, ever. We read Mary Kay, nonfiction, grooming. After the whole time, I think, oh, really? Because they said what happened, you got a disproportionate amount of substance abuse amongst these victims. Veely then got arrested. This is a while ago, not recent. Veely got arrested driving under the influence. I said, that's Mary Kay to blame for that too. And all them white people for decades. You ain't no victim, Veely. You was a man child. You probably halfway raped old Mary Kay. Old dark boy. They said he was black too, remember? Anyway, they said 200 teachers, and they said we could get a stop on all this. We could even put laws in so they don't, what they call it, pass the trash. What? Haven't we heard this before? They get these old white officers that go in and gun down Tamir Rice, and then, oh, wait a minute. Oh, man, it looked like he shouldn't even have been an officer in Ohio because he was over in the other county, and they said he wasn't fit for duty. And he just pass in his nigger knocker and his badge and hop one county over and get a new job. Like, whoa. And they got whole reports in there. They got one report that's called the Wandering Officer. And it talks about people just like Tamir Rice's executioner. That, yeah, you go and maybe you get fired, or maybe you get 15,000 reports for misconduct, and you used this nigger knocker 800 times on me, and I didn't even do nothing, and you just go get another job. No big deal. You do the same thing with the white educators. They get accused. Now, she done molested Leroy, Lakeisha, Devontae, DeVita, done molested all, and we got all these reports, and as opposed to the job say you're supposed to be a mandatory reporter if you're an educator. No. We don't. No. We just let them go get a job in the school district down the road or in the next state over. What does it mean to be white? That's another one. I say, man, please. No, I'm not going to sit over here with no cowardly niggers and talk about, oh, white people. They don't care about no children, and listen to y'all sit around talking about, hey, not all white people is racist, Gus. Whatever. BGQ, we ain't got nothing in common. I go talk to white people, and do you hear the response when I say that to white people? They do not. Oh, what you mean, Gus? That ain't true. I wanted Blanche Boyd admitted racist. You tell me on the graves of Alex and Michael. Psh, white people care about children. You didn't even care about them enough to get all the facts to the story straight. So, I mean, please. On George Stinney. Please. And they talked all that nonsense well, I guess I can't say it's nonsense. I'll retract that. If I had been in California this time last year, I was in California, it would not have been nonsense at all. Total retract. But they talked all that about they had the military activities in California, and they ended up like dropping debris and things on the highway. It was really dangerous. Like they could have killed some people and all that. Like, whoa, what is going on here? Why are y'all doing all this? And in public, you could have killed people. Those police did their firing exercise and the bullets hit the playground. I'ma say it again. White people do not care about children. How in the world? You all supposed to be trained and you take classes and scientifically study ballistics and firearms. How in the world is the exercise carried out where, and this ain't even when the playground is vacant. They said, pew, pew, pew. They had to dull it. Whoa, down. What? Yes. No, in fact, the only thing I wonder is, why did it take so long? Because, I was tripping because I didn't read nonfiction about Mary Kay Letourneau. Maybe I would have been saying, white people don't care about children way earlier. In fact, you heard the same thing in the Wisconsin report because they said lots of people collude in this here thing. It does take a village to rape children, a white village. Yep. Let's see. The Katrina and how they flooded the jails. We did a whole program. So proud. We did signature work on Hurricane Katrina. We have whole programs. White author. He worked in the jails in Orleans Parish. He was at the jail with his dad and all those locked up niggers. And he wrote a whole book about it, came and talked to us about it 10 years after the storm in the archives. I literally just posted it earlier this summer, but he gave so much detail, exactly what they said. We have no plan for these niggers at all. They said in that report, we plan for riots. We do not plan to save no nigger convict's life in a hurricane. Swim, nigger. Oop, we don't let niggers swim. Well, hope Leroy can float. I remember those pictures. They got not quite HD because it was 2005, but they got, color photographs. You can see them locked up niggers in orange jumpsuits, shackled out on the flooded highway ramps in New Orleans. They got vivid pictures. In fact, BBC did a whole documentary. I emailed and got it. When we were doing they did a whole documentary on that. In addition, so you can get lots of information. You can read the book, listen to the program that we did, see if the BBC documentary about the prison component of it, because they had children, Khalif Browder type thing, like you stole a pack of Jolly Ranchers, or a backpack, maybe. We don't even know if you did or not, but you've been accused, so you're basically guilty, nigger. Same thing. Lock them niggers up. Constant. He said, we couldn't even get water. And that's what was in the book from the white author we had on the program. Water, food, psh, hope you don't drown. Prison flooded too. And it was anyway, Katrina. Anyway, and they said, hey, with climate change, you have more of these events. What does that mean for all the niggers that they done stuffed in prisons, Parchment, all the rest of it? Pull my Angola, make sure I get my Southern Negro plantation states correct. That's Angola for Louisiana and parchment for Mississippi. What does that mean for all the niggers that you don't like? We get what I just say. What is it? Hope Leroy can float. Let's see. Admiral Alvin Halsey. They sound peculiar, mysterious resignation after all these the bombings of the narco terrorists, Venezuelans, such as that. Some people think he might have stepped down because maybe this is not legal. Maybe, since Admiral Halsey is a black male, privileged, maybe black self-respect. Maybe you see something on the jobs. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to participate in it. I'm not going to bomb no narco terrorists. It might just be these are dark people. I'm not going to bomb no dark people and call them narco terrorists. I don't even think this is legal. And this might even have some type of Colin Powell type feel to it, that you do all these narco terrorist bombings and such and then come and say it's my fault. Like, I'm good. You all got this one. I'm going to go on and retire early, and yeah, I'm going to let y'all handle this one. You got it. Maybe. And same thing I said before. Misty Copeland, Admiral Halsey, write that memoir. Now, he might have, security clearance, and you work with armed white people. A little different than being at the ballet, I suspect, because, hey, his colleagues, hey, look here, Alvin, and I'm saying that deliberately. Look here, Al. Maybe you write that book. Maybe, and sometimes you even have to get permission from white people. They might not even say, hey, Al, you ain't gonna write nothing. Al, be ashamed for you to have an accident or something. Al, I don't think you're gonna be able to do that manuscript. Al, fish, enjoy your grandkid. Be ashamed if something happened to your grandkids, wouldn't it, Al? You don't want to do it, but books. Messy. You don't want to do all that. I could envision it going that way too. So, they said the Department of Education is a big con job. I have never heard that in my life. I would like is there a book that talks about that? Like, the Department of Education is a con job? Like, what? They have to break that down for me. What's the nature of the con? Like, who has gotten over? What has been the ghetto? Is that part of the prison to pipeline scheme? Is that part of it? Just break it down and give us the logistics of it. Speaking of on my October, and the worthless, and even you can add in, white people do not care about children. Miriam I. Carey, shot, killed, nation's capital in October 2013, with her 1-year-old in the back seat, secured just like Alex and Michael. Now, she made an incorrect turn near the security gate area, and they threw the barrier out in front of her in this long chase and everything, and fired all these rounds, and then justified it. She might have a bomb or an explosive or a black child. That's all the same thing. We had to take her down. Now, this week, and I suspect a lot of you all probably didn't hear it because, hey, they didn't make no big deal about it. They didn't have no gun battle in the street, but they said, oh man, some dude, they just said it was a man, some dude hit the Secret Service gate. You didn't shoot him. You might have a gun or a bomb. And particularly in this climate, they just talked about all this violence left and right and people taking shots at the president.
This service is provided in high definition by freeconferencecallhd.com. There are 9 participants in the conference. Q&A session has started. The recording has started.
Sorry about that. Got disconnected for a moment. It's like, what is going on? Said something I shouldn't have. Maybe said too many times, white people do not care about children. Say it again before I get dropped. But they had Charlie Kirk and people shooting at the president. You got all these reports about everybody thinks violence is the cool thing to do. Now, white people, that is. So why wouldn't it be heightened security? Like, we got to gun down everybody because you might have an AR-15 too, like the dude at the airport. Nope. In fact, they took this person, who I'm willing to bet everything in my life was someone classified as white. They took this dude into custody and didn't even identify them. I could be cooning, messing around. As I said, this didn't get massive attention because they didn't have no raging gun battle in D.C. this time to shoot at some black mom with a child in the car. They just took this person into custody, no shots fired, they're still alive, and did them a solid. They didn't even identify them, so they get ridiculed and all this public shame, and we can go through their social media records and see what kind of heathen this is. They didn't even do that. Miriam I, Carey. Daughter would be old enough to, talk about or grasp all this now. Let's see. The section where they talked about the increase in violence, I'll just say, I do not think it is instructive the same way that Dr. Kamal Kamban, he said, I do not disaggregate white people. Brilliant. I do not get into any of that Republican, Democrat, left, right, northern, southern, the same way that Neely Fuller Jr. said, hey, they don't have white German, they don't have white Irish, they don't have white Australian, they don't have white South African. It is white. Now, all those reports would have sounded 1,000,000% different if it had not been, hey, the common denominator is left, right, Democrat. No, it is white people. Who shot Charlie Kirk? White. Who shot the insurance CEO? White. Who shot at President Trump? Both different times. You got two different shooters. Whites. Who was going to shoot up the airport this week? White. And just go on and on and on. What did that fool say? The problem is white people. And in fact, Dr. Welsing, end stage white supremacy. We are looking at exactly what Dr. Welsing prophesied. That's what, call attention to that. Ain't got nothing to do, that's just confusion, really master deception. The people, and in fact, I know who it is because when they do these old polls and such talking about, oh my Lord, you got more Democrats and leftist folks now saying that we're going to need violence. And, you got these right wings and Timothy McVeigh's ilk and all the rest of it. Hey, if it was the Opalaka Three, Al Sharpton, New Black Panther Party, Assata Shakur's children say, hey, we say we're going to need some violence to replace white supremacy. And in fact, even if you had some old lame, since not all white peoples is racist, even if you had some old Jane Elliott's say, hey, if we need to kill some of these white people to get justice for black people, let the blood run in the street. Whoa. It would not be wow, more people think it's all right for white. It would not be that at all. You are subversive and you need to be in Guantanamo Bay like right now. Force feeds you on video and everything. Where did you get this from? What have you been listening to? You listen to the cows? What in the world? Wouldn't be all that at all. That even, in fact, so who needs to be a target of violence to what they say, get the country back on track? Who are you talking about? Shooting? Killing? Lynching? Because the day of the rope, didn't we hear that this week? Who are you talking about putting a rope around? The zip ties, that was January 6th. Who are you talking about? Can we get a list? Is Gus T. Renegade? Am I on the list? Can y'all let me know? I think you can give me a head start. I'm broke black male. Like, you can give me a head start if I'm on the list. No Opalaka 3 on there that wouldn't misbehave. He been older than I am, so he got a longer record of misbehavior. Last one I'll get in. That fella out there, what I just said, end stage white supremacy. I don't know nothing about if he is Jeff, got his name, the white fella at the airport in Atlanta, shot up the place. I don't know if he's a Democrat. I don't know if he's a Republican. but he's white. I didn't have no doubts about that immediately as soon as I saw him. White. And if I did have doubts, they immediately went, nah, he wasn't taking his meds. Yeah, I got all that. I got it. Miriam I, Carey, hey, they said that she had postpartum depression and all that. I told you she had a 1-year-old. They gunned her down. And the same thing. They took airport terrorist who had an AR-15. They took him into custody. No shots fired. They didn't even bop him upside the head. Probably stopped Roscoe's Chicken. And why you want to get some waffles before we take him in? You sure? Because he looked a little chubby. The white fella went and, was about to shoot up the airport with all them black people. And they going to say it's big. And in fact, he had told people, I'm going to Atlanta Hartsfield Airport named after a Negro. I'm going to go do a rat-a-tat-tat. I said, oh my, what? What? White people are not ignorant, and I'm sure that's not the first time he had said something like that. Meds or no. Meds or no. But you're going to have that right there. That is end stage white supremacy right there. Having lots of no-count white people, nobody white dude, say he got what's your mental health problem? White supremacy racism. What's the expression of your mental health crisis? I'm going to go shoot up some black people. White people kill for fun. That's one like, oh my God, let me find out how dedicated you are to the cows. Put that on a t-shirt with a cows logo. Picture of an AR-15 silhouette. White people kill. Matter of fact, you can put the silhouette of the AR-15 up because white people will recognize that immediately. And then you can put the lynch rope up. Cows logo. Now, who is a Cows fan now? See how much courage it take to go out and tell Leroy he's a coon, he don't know what he's talking about, and you stupid and ignorant. How much courage does it take to put that shirt on? I'm with the cows, and yes, white people kill for fun. I told you about them giraffe bones. Anyway, the number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I will say really quick, that report about the Negroes with guns in Chicago, man, I've heard cows listeners, many non-white people say what we need to do is get our firearms and go to the gun range and shoot and whatever. White people are the masters of firearms. Really, pause for Philando Castile. I could have said Robert F. Williams or many other black people, but that segment was about black people in Illinois getting felony charges for being legal gun owners. So we'll take Philando Castile, who got the master arrest for being a legal gun owner, and he did the exact same thing they did. Like, oh, hey, how you doing, officer? I'm a legal gun owner. I just want to make sure. Whoa, I'm about to die. I was trying to do, man, I should have, black male privilege. I don't think that's that ancient. Like, we should remember that, right? They had the video. He died on video, right? That's one of those. Anyway. But it's tons. Alton Sterling, it's tons. Robert F. Williams, it's tons. Like, I've seen no evidence that a Negro with a gun, that is no problem for white people. Especially now. White people got drones. Like, they don't even have to come and confront. Like, really, they can get real coon hunt-ish about it now. We don't even have to confront Leroy with no gun. We get our drone. We got new technology. You seen the robotic dogs like they got in Black Mirror? We let them chomp on you. We're not even worried. Shoot that. See how many bullets you got for the dog. And then, you know who got more bullets than you? that white fella who went to the airport. So, I mean, it to me, it's laughable because there's so many examples. It's they just abound. What was that group? Not effing around, and they were doing the same thing. We niggers and we mad and we gonna show whitey and we got our firearms, and they did that I think for like 2 weeks, and then they got massive. Sure, I think federal indictment there too, just like Chauncey Billups. Massive charges, and that's the end of that. That's when I'm not telling anybody don't get your gun. I'm not saying not to go to the firearm. I've been more than once. We went yoga retreat and everything. I am saying white people are the masters of firearms. We don't produce firearms. Most of the time, white people are the ones that train us how to utilize the firearms in addition to selling them to us. I just mentioned the Wilmington Purge 1898. They stopped selling guns to Negroes before they conducted that purge in North Carolina. It's not a disturbing pattern. That was the adjective that was used. Disturbing. No, it's racist, and one that just showed what does it mean to be white. You can learn a lot just by studying the history of the gun, or you can pick any gun. AR-15 would be one. Peyton Gendron to what just happened at the airport. Quite a few other attacks in between, all about the system of white supremacy. I said Peyton Gendron, I didn't mean Peyton. Oh, I got it correct. Yes, Peyton Gendron, Buffalo. Yes, AR-15. Gunned down the whole time. Catherine Massey Book Club. AR-15. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let us know if you have thoughts, observations, what transpired from the past week. If you heard anything about the the ramming incident at the state capitol, hitting it because they didn't even name it. If you got the name, that would be great too. If anybody got the name, please share. But even if you didn't, let us know if you did you hear about that? Did you hear people talking about that? Was that mentioned? I know it's been some years, over a decade since the passing of Miriam I, Carey, but man, like I have seen a lot of other instances of people hitting security gates or driving through restricted areas around the White House and various checkpoints around Washington D.C. and only one time I can think of where it had to end in a fatal shootout. Miriam I, Carey. That's it. Let's see. Folks have commentary, observations to share. Star 61. I don't know if they're spectating. No, I had some tech glitches that might have said too many times. White people do not care about children. But Star 61, hopefully the switchboard is not acting a fool even with our little tech issues. We'll see if folks have thoughts, observations. I mentioned the book club. We should be here on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I guess this week we'll be halfway through Evelyn Williams' Inadmissible Evidence, and she is just getting to the whole part about how Joanne Chesimard became Assata Shakur and the shootout that led to her confinement and her involvement in that case and being stalked by FBI agents, COINTELPRO, all of it. She just kind of has started to get into some of the major components of that aspect of her life and Assata Shakur's life. So really looking forward to kind of re-examining some of this material in light of her recent passing, Assata that is. So Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, as we continue with the book club. Haven't even got that far into the text yet. So if you are behind, haven't been reading that one, we just got started. So you can catch up pretty easily. And I won't even say probably, because it's got so much information about COINTELPRO and really important black people. You should definitely read this book. And that was even one of the reasons I wanted to read it. nonfiction, but I suspected this is not a common book. Like, I don't think this is a book that you would stumble on in most bookstores or even most libraries. I don't think this would be one of the books that you would easily land on. So that was part of my reasoning for wanting to read this here book. Hopefully constructive, learn a little bit about Assata as well. Anyway, neutralizing workplace racism Friday. I just said, like, I'm so disinterested in hearing about YouTube videos and what folks watch on TV. Like, I'm never interested in that. Workplace racism. That is the interest. Like, oh man, we just talked about 2 different black people being killed in their work environment by a black coworker. Both events happening this year at different fast food locations. Just make sure, if you have offspring, even amongst yourselves, to discuss anti-blackness in the workplace, and that your code is extensive for minimizing conflict with black people in the workplace, even though that can be difficult. I know the 2 murders that we've been talking about, Jennifer Harris and Ryan Johnson specifically, both killed in the workplace, black people, black workers. They had to discipline, because they were in a managerial position, they had to discipline a black coworker, so-called subordinate, and that led to a big conflict. I can only stress, it is my conclusion. Don't think I'm going to change my mind on this one. If Jennifer Harris, Ryan Johnson had been white, they would still be with us. We generally have been trained to save all of our animosity and rage for Leroy. For Jennifer Harris, someone classified as black, we will get mad and it'll become a Mortal Kombat thing, whereas people classified as white who fire and pillage and steal and everything you can imagine all over the known universe, we do not save all that rage and animosity and I'm going to go kill them. I'm not saying it never ever happens. I'm just saying these 2 events both happened this year within 30 days. Jennifer Harris, Ryan Johnson, black people killed on the job by other black people. I'm not aware of any incident this year of a black person killing a white person on the job because they fired them or cut their hours or stole money from them, wage theft type of a thing. I'm not aware of one from this year. I know 2 from just June of this year. Worthy of great pity we are, but neutralizing workplace racism. We've been talking about those 2. The Jennifer Harris case, we've been talking about that longer because that was from way back this summer, and I just became aware of the Ryan Johnson case. They just made an arrest in that case this month. So, okay, got this. I told you I'm having wacky Wi-Fi issues. Like, that is really, don't know. Maybe I did say too many times white people do not care about children. Either or. Hopefully we'll not have all the Wi-Fi wackiness once we are back and ready to roll at minimum for neutralizing workplace racism. And then I'll update and let folks know for guests for in between prior to the Thursday for neutralizing workplace racism. But yeah, it's always frustrating. Usual suspects, I can only say. Usual suspects with any of the Wi-Fi wackiness or odd difficulties if you are in pursuit of justice. Even just sometimes trying to be a law-abiding citizen. And what do you mean I'm arrested and all that? Anyway, give folks like 2 minutes, see if they have any commentary to share. Hopefully won't have any wacky tech issues in the last 2 moments to see if anybody has commentary. Let's see. Lauren should be with us. Did you have commentary?
Hello, evening everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be heard. I had a little difficulty, so I hope I don't repeat anything that was already said. Let me see. About the segments that were played today, the one about Sumner High School, and they said it was the oldest high school to graduate black students. there was a tornado and that the building had been damaged, but Tina Turner, Arthur Ashe, Dick Gregory, you know, all these people went to the high school, and how the students wanted to go back. And I don't know if they're going to build that school back, but I hope that they do. If the black students were having if their education was going well there and everything, because it really seemed like they wanted to go back to their old school. I was thinking about the Katrina segment, the gentleman who was in jail, and he said when he was in jail, you know, he asked the guard how they were going to do this, and he said the employee just put up a peace sign and then left. You know, they get abandoned in, you know, the Orleans Parish jails and prisons, and that's so dangerous. You know, I'm sure people died like that, and they didn't have to leave them stranded like that. Like, that was so cold. I don't know. The level of mistreatment in Katrina was super high. I read about Admiral Alvin Halsey stepping down from his position, and I also thought, like, he just didn't want to be a part of the illegal things that they were doing. I'm sorry. Give me a little time because my notes aren't really in order the way they should be. They were the part where they were talking about the Charlie Kirk Memorial and the way that their church and state is being mixed. I think that's the way they said it. And they were talking about Pasadena, California, someone named Susan Russell, and their gospel values being different from politics. I'm not sure if that's true, but they were advocating for these so-called gospel values and the religion and politics, and they were talking about that term Christian nationalism, and just that whole section, you know, because it seems like they do want to mix church and state, have a, I don't know, what people call a theocracy. I think it would be the religion of racism, white supremacy, but it made me think about The Violent Take It by Force by Matthew D. Taylor, and Preparing for War by Bradley Onishi. Let me see. Yeah, the part where they were talking about more Americans say violence might be necessary to get the country back on track. They don't give the racial classifications of that. And I think a lot of times that it's white people saying that sort of thing. The segment where they were talking about black people who have concealed carry licenses, but they still get in trouble, they still get arrested, and just all the time and energy and money that has to be spent on these charges. It seems so incorrect, but it just seems like a very common racist tactic. Like, even if you're not doing anything correct, just, you know, they try to wear us down. That might be a metaphor, but use our time and energy, make it to where we're just tired, to where we just give up. We don't, I don't know. I wondered about those people because it said they took their firearms and they still hadn't received them back. But I was wondering, you know, if you have a concealed carry permit and all that stuff has happened, I wonder if they'll actually continue to carry their weapons, even though they're technically allowed to after all the stuff that happened. I wonder if they'll be dissuaded from that behavior in the future. Oh, Atlanta. The man, Billy Cagle, they said, you know, he threatened to shoot up Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. They said he was charged with threatening to shoot up the Hartsfield Airport. I'm not exactly sure what the name of that charge is, and they really didn't say. And the newscaster, he said it twice. He said a catastrophe was diverted. He didn't use the word averted. And they talked about guns and mental health challenges. Because it was a white man, I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of him on the news because they showed the video of him walking around on the airport. But, you know, it said he was a convicted felon and that he was off his meds. And it just seems like a lot of excuses when white people get ready to do something that's incorrect. And, you know, they said likely more than 24 lives were saved and a crisis was diverted. And a crisis was averted. If he was going to shoot it up and they actually stopped him, the word is averted. Diverted would be like if he went to another airport. It was some other things I read in the news that were interesting. A male was found hanging under a 610 overpass on fire. This is in Houston, Texas. The racial classification was not given, so I really don't know he's black. But there's been several hangings lately, and they didn't say this one was a suicide because the body was on fire. So they said the suicide was highly unlikely. The University of Virginia, they made a deal with the Trump. Well, the actual article in the newspaper, the title, the headline was University of Virginia makes deal with White House to halt investigations. And this is October 22nd. And this was the first, I guess, premier public university to make one of these deals with the Trump administration. It's been other private universities like Columbia, things like that. But it seems like they're going to at least temporarily discontinue the threat of continued federal investigation. And they were saying how maybe they went easier on the University of Virginia because James E. Ryan resigned as the president, and you know they talked about DEI, all these other things. Non-white person George, and I'm not sure how you say his last name, Retz, R-E-T-E-S, Retz Jr. The name of this other article, it was unlike Trump, most who seek money for official misconduct face long odds. This was October the 23rd. And this non-white male, he was called an American citizen in the article and an Army veteran, said in July, you know, he's on his way to work. He encountered a protest prompted by an immigration sweep. His license plates indicated that he was a disabled veteran. And a row of federal agents and gas masks blocked his path. You know, he tries to tell these people that he's a citizen, he's on his way to work, you know, I'm just trying to get to work. When that fails, he stands by his car. He gets in his car, he tries to leave. And it said hostile agents surrounded the car, yelling contradictory orders. A canister of tear gas landed near his car. That's very passive. Somebody threw that. An agent shattered the driver's side window with his gun, pepper sprayed him in the face, and then they dragged him from his car, knelt on his neck and his back. He was taken to a Navy base, and then what they described as a detention center, where he was strip searched. His request for a phone call and a lawyer were denied. He was not allowed to shower, despite being, you know, doused with all those chemicals, the pepper spray and the tear gas. And after 3 nights, he was released without any explanation. He missed his daughter's 3rd birthday. Obviously, he didn't go to work, and he has received no compensation, not even for the damage to his car. You know, they busted out the window. But meanwhile, it looks like President Trump is going to get paid $230 million just because, he got investigated and he's a criminal, it seems. He got those 34 felony counts. So he was charged with those crimes, and he's also pretty angry that people investigated him and searched his Mar-a-Lago residence. So for that, he's going to get $230 million, it seems. And meanwhile, Mr. George Redis Jr. doesn't seem like he's going to get any money. That's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Dang. That pepper spray is no joke. Did you hear about the fella who rammed the Secret Service gate in Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see if they identified him?
No. No.
That's what I was looking for. See if thinking that might be some more white power there too. Like, not only do you not get killed, like, they don't even identify. You get to keep your anonymity. Like, we don't know what type of job you. Anyway, great point about the passive language with the, I don't know what type of, I guess that's supposed to be a non-lethal round or grenade when they say it. The pepper spray round leaped out of his pocket, spontaneously ignited. Vapors were thrust into the atmosphere. Like, wait a minute. Like, what do you mean the canister leaped out? What? Like, come on. And they do that all the time with the white person. What do you mean? I didn't do that. No, I didn't hit Leroy. No, we were just telling him, to be safe and not trying. I don't know how it wasn't my tear gas. Yeah. Like, that's such a disgrace too. He's a disabled veteran, and you can't hear him. Like, what? Why? I'm just trying to go to work. Y'all say we're lazy and shiftless. I'm a veteran. I'm just trying to. And you see the same pattern, the same thing with those black people in Illinois. Lucy Washington, Lewis McWilliams get and felony arrests for their firearms. All that time and energy. You got to be wagging court documents here and hither and yonder because they said you got to go back to court. It's not like this is a one-time thing and wrap it up. You got to go back over and over and over. People talking about they lost their bit. That was Lucy Washington. She said, now, even that, the fellow who hit the Secret Service gate, as we are told, unidentified, no mugshot, nothing. Lucy Washington didn't do anything wrong. She told the officer, I believe in the Second Amendment, Constitution of the United States. I have my firearm right here, sir, ma'am. Go ahead and put it out. Keep you safe, keep me safe too. And she ends up with a felony. She said, now I'm a real estate agent. People go to my site, see a house that I'm selling. They got my mug shot next to it. I got to go and explain. Well, wait a minute. I'm Second Amendment. And they said, and Negro with a gun. No. I do own a gun, but still. Come on. Those expungements are not free. Even if they did do it and they didn't charge you a nickel, time and energy. Any hoodles. That hanging is important too because we've talked about some of these hangings. The one that was down at Mississippi that I think we're being told was a suicide. The family's still investigating. Colin Kaepernick got involved to do the second autopsy for the family. But yeah, there have been a number of those suspicious hangings. Throughout the history of white supremacy, there's a lot. And then more immediately within the last 12 months or so, there have been a number of these curious hangings. And that's even with the hanging and the fire, like, wow, that's kind of a lot. And near Waco, no less. Houston and Waco are not that far apart. Waco, affectionately known as Barbecueville, decades before we got to David Koresh, Branch Davidians. But that is for sure one to investigate what happened. Get an identity. Who was it? This can't be a suicide, we don't think. So what, get all the camera footage in the area and, all the rest of it. Anywho, other folks, much obliged. Lauren, other folks, if you have anything, commentary you would like to share. Didn't get any disruptions for the moment, at least. That was Hannibal Nichols, who Lauren mentioned, privileged black male who was under arrest at the time of Hurricane Katrina. And he said that he asked the guard, like, what's the plan, boss? What we gonna do? Like, the water's rising, everything. We want to live through all this. What we gonna do? And he said, dude looked at him, deuces, gave him the peace sign, and that was widely reported during Hurricane Katrina. We read about that in Gary Rivlin's After the Flood. I said, white officer, he wrote a whole book about him being at the prison where he talked about that some of the officers just left. But that was widely reported. People said, forget this. I'm going to get my house. I'm going to go make sure, see if I even still have a house left. And I'm getting my hind parts out of here. Like, there was a lot of that. And, I mean, it was really dangerous, as the video shows. So, yeah. But, I mean, hey, that's... you end up in greater confinement. Attica, Katrina, officer, even it reminded me of that black male, I think that was in Houston, where they got the AI the facial recognition technology, and they said, oh, you stole the sunglasses, get him. And this is like a granddad in his 60s. And no, that's him. And they arrested him, and he ended up being in greater confinement, got gang raped before they, oh, wait a minute. This old grandpa Negro, I don't think he robbed the sunglass shack. Yeah, my bad. We're going to go on and let you out, granddad. Go on and get out. Oh, they raped you out? Oh, man. I guess that shouldn't have happened. Shucks. Well, don't steal no sunglasses. Go on out of here. Go on. Like, what? What? Talk about time and energy for that correction. I don't even think he got no sunglasses. Like, you get free lifetime sunglasses for that one, like the coolest sunglasses that you can imagine, platinum frames and all that. I don't know. Any hoodles. Let's see. Give folks like their last second or two. I just want to say, if we have any parents in the Wisconsin area, you should get that report about those, what they said, 200 educators, allegations of some sort of sexual misconduct and widespread grooming and Mary Kay Letourneau type behaviors. Oh yes. You should get, in fact, you should get that report and read it with your child, because they said K through 12. That means got to be some 5, 6, 7-year-olds getting molested too. Got to be. Read it with your children. Now again, you don't want to do that. Maybe you shouldn't have children, which is fine. That's not a bad thing. Hey, it's a lot of people don't have children going to do spectacular. Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing, there's nothing incorrect about that. But I am saying unequivocally, if you're not willing to do, that's something I don't want to do. Much the way many of us talk about racism. I don't want to talk about race. It's uncomfortable. Well, maybe you shouldn't have children. That's all right. That's not a bad thing. Just, that's part of that big responsibility. And apparently that is a responsibility that many of us have been abdicating, talking to our non-white children about racism, honestly, frankly, often, detailed, comprehensive manner. Same thing with sexual abuse, and often these will be one and the same. Mary Kay. Anyway, but if I was in Wisconsin, even if I was a contiguous state resident, like Minnesota, Philando Castile, yes, we might have to read that report, especially if they're older. But I mean, they said K through 12, so I guess you make it age appropriate if they're 6, 7, or 8. But I mean, you got to talk, because they're abusing and molesting the 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. So, but for sure, if they're 12, 15, 16, and in fact, we're gonna have a very detailed discussion, because now it's, yeah, I might be an old fogey, and no, maybe, as a parent now, I don't have the cute, sexy frame that you do as a young lady or a handsome young fella, but you are in an environment with sexual predators. You don't want to be dressed that revealing or risque, much the way I would sound if we were talking for workplace racism. Hey, this is not really an environment where you want to show off all your goods. Mary Kay is up there salivating, so, do you really want to show off chiseled six-pack. I don't eat no Cheetos. You really want to show that off for Mary Kay? Same thing for the young ladies. Like, that would be a part of the thinking. Like, oh, I wasn't thinking. Yes, I know you weren't thinking. Probably lots of us were not thinking. Oh, wow, really? We got all these Jeff Epsteins up here cheating. Then if my memory serves correctly, I think Jeff Epstein did start out as a teacher, and I think he even faked his resume to get the teaching job. So he might have been doing some classroom grooming too. Whole lot to talk about if you can produce non-white offspring in a system of white supremacy, racism. That's it. Assume gave folks their 5 minutes. Assume folks are satisfied. Thank you all for tolerating. Had lots of tech, snafus, but see, Lauren said she did too, so I don't know. It was widespread. I don't know what's going on. System of what, that part of end stage white supremacy, they mess with the Wi-Fi too. Anyway, we will be back. I'll update on social media and such about programs prior to Thursday for neutralizing workplace racism, but for sure Thursday, and then Friday, Evelyn Williams, inadmissible evidence. COINTELPRO looking forward. Investigate the hanging down in Texas. If anyone gets the name of the fellow who did the ramming of the security gate up in the Washington D.C. area, nation's capital, let us know. Was this a white person, non-white person, racially ambiguous? Who did this? Have they been charged? Are they still in custody? Like, lots of, did they have an AR-15 on their person at the time of arrest? Lots of questions I would have about that one. Any hoodles. Make sure we didn't miss anyone. Grant. Shout to Dick Gregory, two-time guest on the Cows, hated Gus T's guts, but alumnus of Lewis Sumner High School in Missouri. They said like Chuck Berry and all the stars Lauren mentioned, but man, that also seems to be a part of a widespread pattern, closing down schools where lots of black students attend. One, it's kind of even twofold, because they're closing some of the schools because of what I say, white genetic annihilation, white people not producing enough white babies, but then also we're going to get rid of these Negro schools. Part of what they said about getting rid of the Department of Education, where you have fewer and fewer children going to public schools, I think it's like twofold. If we're going to have fewer white children, then forget public school. They're supposed to be for white children. Pitchfork Ben Tillman, that's basically what they said. Public education, all that is for white students, white children. So if it's not going to be any white children, we shouldn't have public education. I'm saying that is the white supremacy math of this all. So yeah, it could be a future no Department of Education, no schools, no drugstores. Like, wow. Hopefully, all that might also lead to no white people. Now, I think I had included in that before when we talk about apocalypse. They were also saying it could be no chocolate either. I could live with that. I ain't got no big issue about that. Hey, you're not going to have the system of white supremacy, but you can't eat Snicker bars no more either. No problem. We'll figure out some other tasty desserts. They'll be wonderful. We'll forget there was ever such a thing as chocolate. Get to the justice part. Much obliged for folks tuning in. Hopefully worthy of your Saturday evening. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. We need high functioning. Imagine either case. Lucy Washington or black male in Chicago, Lewis McWilliams, got their legal gun owners, but they had a little teaspoon of Mad Dog 2020 when they got stopped. It could have been worse, even though we shouldn't say that then. Oh, you just got a felony arrest with, like, what? You got the reckless delirium, and they do the elbow smash. Pow, bang, shoot him 15, You definitely, for sure, want to be super sober and able to think and make spectacular decisions if you're going to have a firearm really exist in the system of white supremacy racism. It has been time, Creator, remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop name-calling people classified as black. Remind us to stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay Letourneau, drowned by Susan Smith, and or other white people. Remind us to maximize our time to produce justice. Remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition.
Mm-hmm.
Even my conditioning has been conditioned.